Have you ever looked at your Subaru Outback in the driveway and thought to yourself, you know what? I need a vehicle that's more rugged, more off-road capable. I need extra ground clearance to take on some dirt roads, the deep snow, and also maybe even some trails with rocks on them. Well, Subaru has you covered with a vehicle that will answer all your problems, and that is the all-new 2022 Subaru Outback Wilderness. Over the last year or so, I have featured every trim for the Outback, and this is the first time that I'm really intrigued and excited to feature this vehicle once again. We have better ground clearance, a more aggressive plastic cladding and front fascia, but also a fun factor that has been missing from the Subaru brand for quite a while. Despite the fact that Outback is one of the best-selling vehicles in the Subaru lineup, it does fly below the radar. There's nothing that really draws your attention as it passes by on the roadways. But I think the Wilderness is an exception to that, as you do have more of this aggressive and rugged look to it. But also, Subaru owners are known to modify their vehicles to make them more off-road friendly. And with the Wilderness, you can now go to the dealership, pick this vehicle up, and go on the trails pretty much the same day, and that's why I am here to take a look at the Wilderness to see how it compares to other trims in the Outback lineup, but also to see if it's the ultimate daily driver and ultimate vehicle for you if you are the type of person that does go outdoors quite a bit and really experiences terrain that's not pavement. Now, before I get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Subaru of Wakefield in Wakefield, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Subaru inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to click the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell so you're notified every time a new review goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Off-roading and ruggedness isn't just a lifestyle, it's now a trend in the 2020s. And for brands like Subaru and Jeep, who've always tailored their vehicles towards buyers constantly seeking adventures, they now have new competition in this market, most notably the Ford Bronco Sport and Bronco. Subarus have always been capable vehicles that can tackle even the harshest of winters, and now with their plush interiors and the injection of technology, they've become well-rounded to suit the lives of many Americans. However, for those who find that Subaru Outbacks just aren't enough, you now have the all-new Wilderness, building off the already capable and versatile characteristics of this crossover, and turning up the notch to its highest setting, as added ground clearance, off-road suspension, and more aggressive looks is going to inspire confidence as you encounter different types of terrain. With these new off-road credentials, what is this all going to cost you? Well, you're looking at a starting price of just under $37,000, putting the Wilderness between the Onyx Edition and limited trims in the lineup. And for those wondering, is about an additional $1,800 more than the Onyx, which is almost identical to in terms of features and packages. One of the major differences compared to other Outback models is the 9.5 inches of ground clearance to outclass all of its closest competitors and to offer an off-road worthy alternative in this price range without sacrificing practicality and interior comfort. Underneath, you'll have a front skid plate for the added reassurance when navigating over taller objects. The bigger story here is the appearance of the Wilderness, as the plastic cladding gets enhanced for a more rugged look, but also a redesign and new placement for the LED fog lights to provide better illumination on the trails as you traverse over rocks and ruts. A minor cosmetic feature that you're going to notice throughout the exterior are copper accents that pinpoint the tow hook mounts and tie downs, letting you know that this crossover is made to get dirty and to take on the elements, while also encouraging you to leave the city for a long weekend and experience the outdoors. A subtle change with a Jeep-like aesthetic is the matte gray accent on the hood, which also is a bit more aggressive compared to other trims, and as with all Outback models, steering responsive LED headlights will be equipped on the Wilderness to give you better visibility on dimly lit roads. Moving over to the side profile, the Wilderness will be sitting on 17-inch aluminum alloy wheels with a matte black finish wrapped in all-terrain tires. Just like up front, the plastic cladding around the wheel arches are also beefed up with the anticipation that you'll be taking this crossover off-road and going through mud. Distinguishing this model from the Onyx Edition will be the Wilderness badge found on the front doors, and the matte finish folding side mirrors with integrated turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, the styling is very similar to the front fascia, as the plastic cladding integrates into the LED taillights, and as mentioned earlier, the copper accents make their way on the rear bumper as well. Catching my eye is the dual exhaust outlets, which aren't tucked away like on other trims, and that's a minor touch that will go unnoticed, but gave me the impression that the Wilderness is a more capable model when it comes to power. If you're the type of buyer searching for a nice color contrast, opting for the crystal white pearl paint is really going to accentuate the cosmetic improvements, while also drawing quite a lot of attention to you as you pass by other motorists and pedestrians. Under the hood, the Outback Wilderness is powered by a 2.4-liter turbocharged boxer 4-cylinder engine that puts out 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a CVT. Despite the transmission getting a bad rap among automotive journalists, Subaru's continuously variable transmission does mimic gear shifts to provide some engagement, and you will have paddle shifters if you prefer more of a traditional feel as you accelerate. From the outside, the Outback appears to be unassuming, but with the turbo, this crossover is capable of reaching 60 miles per hour in less than 6 seconds, which is quite impressive for a vehicle not known for its sporty attributes. Of course, Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive will come standard, making the Outback the vehicle of choice for most buyers in regions of the US that experience winter road conditions. When it comes to fuel efficiency, the added ground clearance and minor changes made over other trims will play a role, as you can expect to receive right around 22 miles per gallon in the city and 26 miles per gallon on the highway, unlike other XT models which offer 23 mpg city and 30 mpg highway. Stepping inside, you're given power adjustable and heated StarTex water-resistant fabric seats, which we first experienced with the Onyx Edition. Rather than being a carbon copy of its slightly more affordable sibling, you'll have a grippier upholstery that'll keep you in place when traveling down uneven road surfaces. But this also creates the perception that these seats are more aggressively bolstered, and compared to other Outback trims, has a heightened sense of comfort and support which enhanced my driving experience. Since the rest of the interior is really no different than the other Outbacks we featured, let's take a look at the minor changes, first being the copper accents on the steering wheel and gear shifter. The Subaru Wilderness badge will be found throughout the cabin, such as on the headrests, the digital display between the analog gauges, and on the door panels. Then taking a glance over to your infotainment system, you'll have an 11.6-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, with onboard navigation being optional. New for the Wilderness is an amped up X mode, which now gives you the ability to take on deep snow and mud. And while you may use the front camera to help park in tight spots, this will be useful when you're out on the trails. Added midway through the 2021 model year, the Auto Start Stop button is now found on the home screen, so you won't have to dig through different menus to turn off this feature, which many Subaru owners have been demanding that change. Not equipped on this model, you will have the ability to opt for a wireless phone charging pad, and through an additional package, you can receive reverse automatic braking and a power moonroof to offer both comfort and safety on your daily travels. Now for passengers in the back, we're going to start off on the driver's side, and the seat is adjusted further up to somewhere around the height of 5'6" or 5'7", and I have an abundant amount of legroom to work with here. In fact, I could just sit back, relax, and recline on a long drive. But this is great to see because the Outback is in a very competitive market where it's going to be going up against Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V. And when it comes to passenger volume, specifically legroom, it will outclass those two vehicles. So it's more family friendly, family conducive, but also with this vehicle being a Wilderness, you're going to have most likely average size adults back here if you are going on an outdoor adventure or going camping, and they can sit back here pretty comfortably. Also, when it comes to that headroom, even though the Outback has more of a station wagon-like appearance and road presence, you're still going to have a lot of room to work with, so you can definitely fit people of all sizes and shapes back here. Now, the only concern that I have, and I've talked about this numerous times on the channel when I've done feature videos of an Outback, is that with the center hump being very aggressive, it will take away from legroom, but also shoulder room as well. I've always felt that the Forester was more family friendly. You could fit 3 people back there easily because the center hump wasn't aggressive at all. Now, I think in a pinch, you could squeeze maybe a child if you have 2 average-sized adults on the outboard seats. But I just don't see this vehicle being one where you can fit 5 people overall. And I could be totally wrong on that, but just because of the center hump and how it forces me to spread my legs, I just think it's going to take away from trying to fit that 3rd person. So definitely keep that in mind. But when it comes to people of all sizes and shapes for the outboard seats, that's where I feel that this vehicle is certainly family friendly, but also passenger friendly as well. Then on the driver's side, just for demonstration, I adjusted the seat all the way back. It's also on a recline. And I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here. Obviously, it's not ideal. I am around the height of 5'5", so I'm not the tallest person out there. But it is great to see that if you do have a taller passenger up front, over the height of 6 feet tall, and you have someone 5 feet and above in the second row, they should all be fine. So it's just great to see that Subaru is emphasizing that family-friendly aspect, but also making sure the passengers in the second row are comfortable like the people up front. Also back here, you will have 2 rear air vents to go along with 2 USB inputs, also 2 level heated outboard seats. And rounding out the rear seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're going to have right around 32.5 cubic feet of room to work with here, which is pretty much on par with other vehicles in this segment, but also it's no different than last year, despite the fact that the Wilderness is a bit wider than other trims in the lineup, so that does not translate to interior room. Now, I was able to fit all my camera gear back here and then some. I could do my grocery shopping and still have more room for additional equipment. Now, if you are to go on a road trip with the family, I'd say you'll be able to fit around 4 to 6 bags of luggage, depending on how big those bags are. But also, more importantly, if you are going camping or going off-roading and you have some equipment with you, you can definitely fit that back here and not sacrifice not having 2 people in the second row. There's still enough room here where you can definitely have all that gear with you. But speaking of the second row, with those second row seats folded, you're going to have right around 75.7 cubic feet. So overall, what you have here with the Outback is a practical and versatile vehicle, more so than other competitors, because you have that 9.5 inches of ground clearance, so you can go off-roading no matter what time of the year it is, whether it's the summer or the winter. But also you have that practicality where you can load up everything and be on the road and have some fun and take on some adventures. But also, as we demonstrated with the seating situation, you can have average-sized adults back here, have your friends tag along, and have a great weekend. Also back here, you will have some netting on the right side for some smaller items such as water bottles or possibly car detailing equipment. Then also you will have on either side of the rear cargo area quick release levers where you can conveniently lower the second row seats, which is going to save you some time if you do have a lot of equipment with you and you're running low on time, and say you're running a little late on your trip to maybe New Hampshire or Maine. Then beneath the floor mat, you will have a full-sized spare tire, which is only available on the Onyx Edition and the Wilderness, which is a bit surprising. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. Another feature that I like with the Subaru Outback is that we do have a rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear with you or anything of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. And then once you're done, just press the button and the lift gate will close automatically. All right, so let's take the Subaru Outback Wilderness out for a test drive to see how it performs and how it handles compared to other Outbacks, because we are sitting a little higher, and also, of course, we have 17-inch wheels. So I'm really interested in seeing how this feels. Now, one thing I will say, though, is that with the extra 1 inch of ground clearance, this really feels like a crossover. And when you compare the Outback and the Forester feels more SUV-like or crossover-like, whereas the Outback is very closely related to the Legacy, and it does feel more like a car. And even right now, being behind the wheel, it still has that car-like tendency, but you still have that ground clearance where it does kind of feel more crossover-like, especially where now I'm a little more on eye level with some of the bigger SUVs. This has a good amount of pickup too. What I like is that you have the 2.4 liter turbocharged boxer 4-cylinder engine under the hood for this particular model. It really picks up nicely, and it's a sleeper. It really is for a vehicle in this segment that does not have any sports car credentials whatsoever, because you're looking at a 0 to 60 time of around 6 seconds or below, which is pretty impressive for a vehicle with this amount of horsepower and performance, but also with a 4-cylinder. So if you're looking for a vehicle that can get you on the highway pretty quickly, this is going to be one of them, and that's kind of a shocker. Now, as always, when it comes to the front vision, you have plenty of it, and that's one thing I like about Subarus, is that all their vehicles do provide a lot of front vision. The A-pillars are not very aggressive at all. Side mirrors are placed very nicely, so I can see what's in my blind spots. Also, of course, I do have blind spot detection. What I am surprised, though, with the Wilderness trim, as I'm, of course, steering this car around, is that we don't have a heated steering wheel. And that surprises me, just because most likely you will be going off-road or going through deep snow during the winter. And to be honest, I'd like to see that feature in the future, because I know that the Onyx Edition doesn't offer a heated steering wheel either. Now, of course, we're not going to be going off-road today, but I am going to get a good sense of how this car handles the bumps, as of course I am in the New England area, so our roads are notoriously horrible. But from what I am experiencing right now, it's actually a really quiet car. And of course, that lane centering, that lane departure warning, that is going to beep at you all the time. So as I always say with Subaru vehicles, is that it's a safe vehicle. It's safe for you and your family. It's safe if you're given the keys to the young driver and the family. So at least you have that peace of mind. Now, when it comes to brake feel, you do have to mash on the brake pedal and depress the brake pedal pretty aggressively to stop this crossover, which is to be expected, just because you're not going to have sport brakes on an Outback, although I'd love to see that. But this vehicle is really meant for daily driving, but also, of course, going on the trails. But my biggest question was, is this vehicle daily drivable? Because when you look at the ruggedness and you look at the plastic cladding, it's like, is this going to be as comfortable as the regular Outbacks? And from what I've experienced so far, it's handling the bumps pretty well. It is daily drivable. Also, the fact, since we have 17-inch wheels, the ride quality is very nice. It's very soft. And if I was to compare this to some of the bigger tire sizes that the Outback sits on, especially on the higher trims, this might be a little bit nicer. Now, of course, then you throw in that we have off-road suspension, and this is really where I'm starting to feel the bumps a bit more. But when it comes to the road noise, you really can't hear it. It's actually really nicely insulated in here, and that's one thing that Subaru's really been working on a lot over the last few years. You do have a nice direct steering. You can really feel some enjoyment behind the wheel as you throw it around in corners. Obviously, this is not a crossover that you're going to be driving very spiritedly on winding back roads, but I like the responsiveness of the steering. It's really responsive and darty. Also, there's some weight to it as well. Now, compared to other Outbacks that I've driven in the past, it doesn't feel too much different when you're not on a road with a lot of bumps. But then once you get to the horrible roads of New England, that's really where you start feeling the difference, because the Outback, especially on the higher end, feels very entry-level luxury-like. And even though the interior of the Wilderness is really nice and plush, especially with these StarTex water-resistant fabric seats, and they do provide a good amount of bolstering, it is a bit of a step below the Limited and the Touring for sure. All right, so let's get a good idea of the body roll here. So I'm going into this corner at around 40 miles an hour. I feel pretty planted, which is a bit surprising. Just because most crossovers, you don't have a low center of gravity, but at 40 miles an hour, it's pretty good. I do wish that there was less slow drivers on the road right now. Yeah, once you get over 40, you start feeling the body roll. Get on the highway here just to get a quick acceleration. Wow, that kicked up to 6,000 RPM. Not bad. And now I'm at highway speeds. That's nice. That's really impressive. Now, it's on the highway that you hear the road noise, so the all-terrain tires are going to make some more noise than the all-seasons that you're going to experience on other trims for the Outback. So certainly keep that in mind. This vehicle is purpose-built for the off-road, but also to take on any type of terrain that you're going to experience as you're driving throughout the week, whether you are going on dirt roads or deep snow. But it still has a daily driving aspect that I like and what I was hoping for with this trim, because I was looking at them like, this is definitely a crossover out of SEMA, and I'm wondering how that's going to change up the driving dynamics, but I'm not really noticing much of a difference at all. Now, I was talking to the guys here at Subaru of Wakefield, asking what's going on with the inventory situation, of course, and when it comes to the Wilderness, they can't keep these in stock. They're literally selling the next day. I was kind of surprised that this did not sell while I was filming it. That's how hot these vehicles are. That's how hot the market is for crossovers, but also just the automotive industry in general. So I think that people are really digging this, especially Subaru owners. They're traditional buyers. They either grew up in a family where they had Subarus, or they were introduced to a Subaru and they've purchased an Outback or a Forester ever since. And I think that if you own an Outback right now and you're looking for something just a little bit more rugged, this is a great upgrade. Now, a lot of people are going to complain about the fact that Subaru does use CVTs. And what I would say is go and test drive a Honda and also test drive a Nissan. Experience their CVTs. And then hop back into a Subaru, because what you're going to experience is that the Subaru CVTs really mimic gear shifts very well. And it almost makes it feel as though it's a traditional automatic. Although I would like to see a 6-speed or an 8-speed get paired up with this turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, although I don't think Subaru is ever going to do that. But it would be nice just because it would give you a little more engagement behind the wheel. But what I would say, though, is that you're really not going to notice that CVT on city streets or in suburban areas. It's only when you go on the highway and you really accelerate, that's really where you feel the CVT kick in. But for daily driving purposes in the city, you're not going to notice it at all. And I think that's what makes Subarus, to me, feel more refined than their Japanese rivals. And that's why if I was strictly looking at a Japanese vehicle to purchase, I think Subaru would definitely be on the top of the list on that end, just because their CVTs are far more refined. Now, overall, after this test drive, what I will say here is that the Outback Wilderness drives a lot better than I was expecting, because with the all-terrain tires, with the higher ground clearance, but also the off-road suspension, I was expecting a driving experience that wasn't that enjoyable. I was afraid that Subaru was compromising more of the softer ride qualities and this entry-level luxury feel with the Outback to make it off-road worthy, and not so. It's actually quite enjoyable, and it reminds me of the other Outbacks I've driven. Now, of course, with the Touring, with the Limited, you're going to have leather seats, you're going to have Napa leather seats, so that's going to make the driving experience a bit more plush and a bit more upscale. But compared to the Onyx Edition, I really can't tell much of a difference outside of when I do have to drive over horrible New England roads and the imperfections in the road. That's where I notice this vehicle takes the bumps a little differently. It's not as soft. So if you are looking for that off-road vehicle, this is certainly going to do it, but you're not going to be uncomfortable on your ride up to New Hampshire or Maine or wherever else you live. You're not going to be, really regretting your purchase decision. So that's why what I like about this vehicle is that it's done an amazing job of retaining its comfortable and family-friendly qualities while also being off-road worthy and rugged as well. So when compared to its closest rivals, and I'm just going to throw in the Ford Bronco Sport here just because I think when you look at the price ranges, it does match up, is that the Outback is going to be more comfortable for daily driving purposes, especially if you have a family, because you're going to have more legroom in the second row, but also you're going to have more of that softer suspension, dare I say, because with the Ford Bronco Sport, it's a bit more aggressive. You do feel the bumps a lot more. It does feel somewhat truck-like. It definitely doesn't feel like the Ford Escape that it's built on or the platform it shares with. Whereas the Outback, this doesn't really feel much different than the Onyx Edition And I think that's a win for Subaru. So at the end of the day, what are my final thoughts for the Subaru Outback Wilderness? Well, to be honest, it's like driving around a vehicle from SEMA, where you have the extra ground clearance compared to other Outbacks. You have the more aggressive plastic cladding and also the gray accent on the hood. But then also when you step inside, you have the Wilderness badge all over the interior. You have a tag that says Subaru Wilderness on the doors. You have the Wilderness badge embroidered in the headrest, and then even when you start this vehicle up, it has the Wilderness badge in the digital display between your analog gauges. This is a really cool vehicle. It adds some fun and enjoyment to the Outback name, and I think a lot of buyers who have purchased Outbacks in the past are going to hop into this vehicle and really have a lot more fun. They can now go off-road, they can take on deep snow, they can do whatever they want with this vehicle and not worry about scratching the paint or not having that capability. Even though Subaru is one of the most capable vehicles you can buy in this segment, it just takes things to a whole new level, and I think that we need to see a lot more of this from the Subaru brand. We need to see a Wilderness Forester. We need to see a Wilderness Crosstrek. I just think that that would be a great decision moving forward. But also, it seems to me that Subaru is tearing a page out of Jeep, but also Ford as well, where you have that unique badging. You have some unique accents. And I just think it's going to really translate to a lot of younger buyers as well. And there's just a lot of things to really be excited about this vehicle, especially where it is powered by a turbo. That to me, just overall, you have the performance, you have the off-road capability, you have the practicality. This is really changing the whole perception around the Outback, where now it's fun, it's interesting, it's unique, and that's exactly what Subaru needed. But overall, I do think that if you are looking for a rugged off-roader that doubles as a great daily driver, then the Outback Wilderness is certainly the way to go, because this vehicle really combines everything that you love about the Outback, but takes it to a whole new level. So you have that 9.5 inches of ground clearance, you have that off-road capability, but also you have the practicality as well. And if you do cross-shop this with another new arrival to this market, like the Ford Bronco Sport, you are going to notice that the second row seats are more spacious in the Outback than the Ford Bronco Sport. But also when it comes to interior quality and comfort, it seems as though that Subaru is still staying true to who they are, which is really emphasizing that family-friendly aspect, where you're going to have that soft touch padding in certain locations. Also, the seats are really comfortable as well. So I just think that what Subaru is offering here is a great all-around crossover, but also they've given you the comfort level that you experience with other trims in the Outback lineup without sacrificing anything to really make it more rugged. So I really like the changes that they've made for the Wilderness, and I really want to see a lot more of this in the future from the brand. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.